If you have ever roasted a turkey where the breast meat was a little dry by the time the legs and the thighs were finished, then I have the answer for you. I'm going to show you how to spatchcock a turkey today. Now I'm starting with a relatively small turkey today. This one's just about 11 pounds, but the procedure that we're going to do is the exact same whether it's a 10-pound turkey or a 20-pound turkey. I'm going to start out by making sure that our turkey is clean, and if it came with any kind of a thermometer or anything, just pull that out. We don't need it. And then you want to make sure that you get any pieces that were put inside. So there's a neck inside of the cavity of my turkey, as well as usually a little bag of your giblets and things. Set those aside. Then I like to take some paper towels and dry it off completely. I'm saving this neck because I am going to be roasting that, and I have some other pieces to roast with it as well. And if you like giblet gravy, go ahead and hang on to this for when you go make your gravy. I'm going to set it aside for now. Make sure you take a paper towel inside the cavity. We don't want any extra water. We want to roast this, and that means that we want to make it dry before we start that process. So dry it off completely, and then also look for any feathers that may still be attached. Sometimes if you take a look at your turkey, you'll still see little pieces of feathers. Just want to pull those out and clean it up a little bit. It's also easier to cut for the spatchcocking if the turkey's dry. Okay, the next step we need to be concerned with is making sure that we find the front of our turkey. We want to take the backbone out of it to spatchcock it. So we want to find the front. Breast meat's in the front, the legs face front. That means that that backbone is here along the back side. Let's talk about the reasons why you would want to do this. The first one, and I think it's the most popular, is that by taking the backbone out and flattening your turkey down, you're actually creating an even cooking surface. That even surface means even cooking times. So by the time the breast meat is cooked, we don't have raw legs, and vice versa. By the time we get our legs and thighs cooked, we don't have completely dried out breast meat. So that's number one. The second reason is that it's actually a lot quicker to cook it this way. So it's about 6 minutes per pound. So if you have a 10-pound turkey, you're basically looking at about an hour of cooking time. So even with a very large turkey, like a 20-pound turkey, you're probably going to have this done in about 2 hours. So it's really, really fast compared to the traditional time. Another reason I really love about it is that if you only have one oven, you're not taking up the entire oven. So if you put a turkey breast side up in the oven, it's going to take up a tall amount of space in your oven, not leaving you a lot of room for everything else that you want to try to get in there. So if you don't have a lot of oven space, this is the answer for you. We also get juicier meat when we do it this way because the breastbone isn't sitting up so high in the hottest part of the oven, drying out, and that makes it a little bit juicier. You don't have to baste a spatchcock turkey. You can just dress it, put it in the oven, and pull it out when it's ready. One of the other reasons I love spatchcocking a turkey is because the bones underneath of the cavity actually become your roasting rack. So my roasting pan, this guy, very heavy roasting pan. You don't have to have one like this. We'll talk about other options, but it comes with a roasting rack. We're not using the roasting rack. I'm going to set it aside. The bones and the carcass are actually going to become the roasting rack for us. Now let's go ahead and talk about the tools that you'll need to do your spatchcocking. You can use a cleaver or a really heavy knife. I'll show you both options. Let's talk about knives. This was my go-to knife for a long time. It's just your standard kind of heavyweight butchering knife. I use it for cutting all kinds of things, just your standard blade, right? This is very sharp. It helps a lot if your knife is sharpened, so take the time to sharpen it up first. And you want something that has a good handle and some weight in it because we do have to cut down through. This works. However, if you really want something that's going to have a lot of weight to it and be a little easier, I would go to a cleaver like this. Now this is quite the knife and I love it. Now we butcher our own chickens here on the property and this is a must-have for butchering, so that's why we have it. Before then, I always did my spatchcocking with a standard knife. And some people like to use kitchen shears. I don't. I think it's easier with a knife if you have control. I'm going to show you how. But if you have a cleaver and if you want one, I can direct you to my Amazon account. I bought this through Amazon. I can direct you to that and you can find it. It's a worthwhile knife to have, but it is not necessary. However, I like the weight, so we're going to go ahead and use it. When you go through the beginning of this, it's going to be very simple to go, and you're going to get to a spot here at the hip where it gets a little tougher. You can push hard through it, or you can give it a little bit of a tap. Sometimes just taking it apart and giving it a little tap pushes it right through. Sometimes you have to push down on it. And there it goes. Okay, so you can see it's open here. That bone that I struggled with at the bottom is right there. It does cut through, you just have to really give it some force. The second side can be a little harder because now it's open and wobbling. I put my hand here to hold the backbone and go ahead and put my knife in here. I make that initial cut through the skin. You see, okay? And then once you're through that, you just push down through these bones until you get to that difficult spot. And if it's tough again, give it a little whack and power through it to the end. And there it is. You got your whole backbone out, and this can go ahead in to be roasted. We're almost there. Now what we want to do is open this up. You can see inside. Right here where it connects, I need to make a little bit of a cut, and it's not much of one. Just a little pressure to open that up, and then pull on either side. See how we're flattening it out? Now all I have to do is flip it over, turn the legs out a little bit, and push. A little CPR move. I like to tuck my wings back underneath so they don't burn, and we're ready to roast. I'm gonna set this aside for a moment and I'll show you how I'm gonna dress the pan. But first I wanted to talk about these bones. They're so important that you hold on to these. We have the backbone and the neck in here, and my grocery store sells extras as well. So I was able to buy some extra turkey necks, and I'm gonna add these in. I always roast these the day before I need them. That way I can get my gravy started ahead of time. So I'm gonna take these pieces and put them in my roasting pan as well. Actually had packages of just turkey thighs, so I'm going to roast these too, because now I'm going to get a little bit of dark meat for my gravy. And I want to do this ahead of time because I can get all of this started and then pick this dark meat off before Thanksgiving even starts. Then I'll have a really good head start to the day. So I'm just going to nestle these in here. This is super simple. We're going to do salt and pepper in here, and that's it. I'm going to roast these pretty high. I like to start at like 425 to start. Get these roasted really hot and really high. Then I go down to a moderate, like 325, 350, and then finish them off just until they're starting to fall off the bone and the fat has started to render out. Then I'm gonna have all of this available for roasting bones to be able to make gravy with, and I'll have this meat that I can pick off to add a little meat to the gravy. All right, back to the big pan. I like to use this heavy duty roasting pan. If you don't have one of these, that's okay. You can use a sheet pan if you need to. Just remember, you are gonna render out some fat and have some liquid here. So something a little deeper is ideal. If you wanna use the throwaway kind that you can buy at the grocery store, I would recommend doubling up because sometimes they're a little weak and wimpy under the weight of your turkey. The bottom of this pan is really simple. I'm adding onions, celery, and herbs. I chopped up some celery and some onions to put in the bottom of here. You can leave the skins on, you don't have to remove them, but if you want to, feel free. And then I'm gonna go ahead and use some fresh herbs as well. Just several pieces of rosemary, some sage, and then some thyme. I put them in here whole, just like this. I put my turkey right on top of it. Probably gonna fit better this direction. Just like that. I have a nice even surface to work with, and if I want my breastbone to be even further down in, you can pull the onions out and push it down and get the legs up a little bit higher. One more thing I want to mention about this, make sure that you take your frozen turkey out of the freezer several days before Thanksgiving and let it defrost in the refrigerator. We want that to do so slowly. It's better to do it completely defrosting it in the refrigerator and let it come to room temperature the day of. About an hour or so outside the refrigerator is ideal. Now, if you have a very large turkey and you're concerned about the white meat drying out, even though you've spatchcocked it, I have another solution for you. While you're going through that 1 hour process of bringing it to room temperature, you can just take a bag of ice and place it right over the breast meat. This bag of ice will keep the breast meat nice and cold while the legs come to room temperature. That means when I go to put it in my oven, I know that my legs are gonna cook faster than the breast meat is gonna cook, so I'm not gonna have to worry about that white meat drying out. Okay, when it comes to dressing the top of this, I like to keep it very, very simple. I use either olive oil or coconut oil. I like coconut oil because it tends to make the skin even crispier and it just has a nice, sweet little taste to it. And then I also use salt, pepper, and a couple of herbs. Let me show you. With a little wax paper, dip that down into my coconut oil and get a good coating on the top of the turkey. This is not a necessary step. Lots of people skip this. You can just go ahead and put your seasoning on it. I just think it helps hold the seasoning in place a little bit. Okay, with that spread all over, we're gonna do some salt and pepper. I like a coarse salt. And a coarse pepper. And then I use the same herbs on the top that I put underneath, so I'm gonna take a little bit of thyme and sprinkle it all over. See, chicken loves thyme, well so does turkey. Turkey loves thyme too. A little bit of rosemary. Grind that up with your fingers as you're spreading it around to break it up and let those aromatics come out. And then we're gonna add a little bit of sage as well. You can use fresh herbs on top if you want to as well. I just like the dried herbs. They're easier to spread across the turkey. And I think that they just become part of the skin and it's easier to eat. Okay, so we're seasoned and we're ready to go into the oven. I like to start out at 425 for just a few minutes to get that little crispy on top, and then I take it down to 350. We want to get to 160 degrees, but I like to stop at like 157, let that last couple of degrees coast while it's out of the oven. So 155 to 157, it should come out.